Queen Nzinga, the woman who refused to bow. Tonight the moon is taking us to Angola, to a land where rivers carried secrets, drums carried warnings, and kingdoms trembled beneath the shadow of foreign power. Tonight the moon is taking us to the story of Queen Nzinga, a woman born into royalty, shaped by conflict, and remembered because she refused to be made small. When powerful men denied her a seat, she created her own dignity. When they expected her silence, she answered with wisdom. When they came for her people, she became the wall they could not break. But before we enter her story, let us pause and remember this. Africa has never lacked women of power. From ancient queens to fearless mothers, from marketplace organizers to warriors of resistance, our history is filled with women who led, protected, negotiated, fought, and rebuilt. Yet even today, many women are still asked to prove their worth before they are allowed to speak. What irony! The women of yesterday carried kingdoms on their backs, yet the women of today are still sometimes treated as though leadership is too heavy for their hands. But history disagrees. The moon remembers, the ancestors remember, the earth remembers the footsteps of women who refused to bow. So come closer. Let the night grow still. Let the fire rise and let the moonlight open the road. For tonight we journey into the life of Queen Nzinga, the woman who turned insult into power, pain into strategy, and resistance into legacy. Queen Nzinga, the woman who refused to bow. Welcome to Moonlight Tells Africa, a place where African stories come alive beneath the moonlight. Stories filled with wisdom, culture, emotion, humanity, and transformation. Here we journey through the heart of Africa, through village paths, moonlit memories, forgotten truths, silent struggles, and the powerful lessons hidden inside ordinary lives. So, wherever you are listening from, sit close, relax, and journey with me. Sit close to the fire. The elders are about to speak. This is Moonlight Tells Africa.
Before we begin today's story, kindly subscribe and become part of this growing circle of African history, wisdom, culture, and moonlight tales. Sit close to the fire. The elders are about to continue their story.
The princess who learned the weight of power. Long before Queen Nzinga became a name carried by history, she was a child of the royal house of Ndongo in the land we now call Angola. She was born into a world of drums, rivers, warriors, elders, and sacred responsibilities. In the palace, people saw beauty, beads, royal cloth, and the shining symbols of power. But Nzinga saw more than that. She watched her father rule. She saw messengers arrive with dust on their feet and fear in their eyes. She saw chiefs lower their voices when serious matters entered the room. She saw that a kingdom was not held together by gold, praise, or titles. A kingdom was held together by wisdom. From childhood, Nzinga listened carefully. When elders spoke, she listened. When warriors argued, she listened. When her father sat in silence, she listened even more. For silence, too, has a language. And as the elders say, the child who listens when elders speak will one day speak when elders listen. Nzinga grew in knowledge. She learned the customs of her people. She learned the power of patience. She learned how to watch a person's eyes before trusting their mouth. She learned that leadership was not noise. Leadership was understanding when to speak, when to wait, and when to stand firm. But while Nzinga was growing, the world around Ndongo was changing. Foreign ships had already touched the coast of Angola. The Portuguese had come with trade, religion, weapons, and ambition. At first, their words sounded smooth. They spoke of friendship, they spoke of agreement. They spoke of order, but behind many smooth words there was hunger. They wanted influence, they wanted land, they wanted control, and worst of all, they were tied to a cruel trade that tore people from their families and carried them far from home. The elders of Ndongo understood the danger. They knew that when a stranger enters your house and begins to measure your walls, he may not have come only to visit. The pressure on Ndongo grew heavier. There were battles, there were broken agreements, there were difficult choices. Nzinga's father, the king, carried the burden of a land trying to protect itself from forces that were growing stronger every day. Then, after her father's time passed, Nzinga's brother became ruler, but the kingdom did not become peaceful. The Portuguese continued to press closer. Their demands became harder. Their presence became more dangerous. Ndongo needed someone who could speak with courage and wisdom. Someone who could enter a room full of powerful strangers and not lose herself. Someone who understood both dignity and strategy. So Nzinga was chosen to go to Luanda and speak with the Portuguese governor. She was no ordinary messenger. She was the voice of Ndongo. As she prepared for the journey, she knew that every step she took carried more than her own life. She carried the fears of mothers. She carried the hopes of children. She carried the prayers of elders. She carried the honor of a kingdom. Before she left, an old woman looked at her and said, "My daughter, when you stand before those who think they are greater than you, do not let anger carry your tongue. Let wisdom carry it." Nzinga understood. She did not need to shout to show strength. She did not need to tremble to show respect. She would go with calm eyes, steady breath, and a mind sharper than a spear. When Nzinga arrived in Luanda, she entered the place of negotiation with royal dignity. The Portuguese governor sat waiting. His people had seats, but for Nzinga, no chair had been provided. It was not a mistake, it was a message. They wanted her to stand before them like someone beneath their power. They wanted her to feel the insult before the conversation even began. For a moment, the room watched her. Her attendants watched her. The Portuguese watched her. Even silence seemed to watch her. But Nzinga did not allow their insult to become her shame. She understood that dignity is not always given. Sometimes dignity must be claimed. Without panic, without begging, without raising her voice, Nzinga turned the moment around. She refused to stand like a servant before men who wished to reduce her. She created her own seat of honor, and when she sat, the room changed. The Portuguese governor may have held the chair prepared for him, but Nzinga held the power of presence. That day she spoke not as a frightened woman, not as a helpless princess, but as a representative of a proud African kingdom. She negotiated with intelligence. She answered with confidence. She carried herself like one who knew that her people were not lesser. The Portuguese had expected weakness. They met wisdom. They expected submission. They met a woman who understood the game before the first word was spoken. And from that day, Nzinga's name began to travel with a different kind of power. But one meeting could not end the storm. The troubles of Ndongo were deeper than one negotiation. The Portuguese still wanted control. The kingdom still faced danger, and Nzinga would soon learn that diplomacy could delay a battle, but it could not always prevent one. The princess had shown her wisdom. Soon she would be forced to show her strength. The queen who chose resistance. After the meeting in Luanda, Nzinga returned to Ndongo with her dignity unbroken. She had entered a room designed to make her small, and she had left it larger than the insult. But wisdom does not mean the road becomes easy. The Portuguese still wanted power. They still wanted obedience. They still wanted the land to bend. And Ndongo was still standing in the path of their hunger. The kingdom became restless. There were arguments among chiefs. There were fears among families. There were whispers in the palace. Some said, "Let us make peace at any cost." Others said, peace without honor is only another name for surrender. Nzinga listened. She knew that a leader must hear every voice, but not every voice should guide the kingdom. For as the elders say, not every drumbeat is calling you to dance. Some are warning you to prepare. Then came a season of deep sorrow and political trouble. Her brother, the king, was gone. The throne of Ndongo stood in uncertainty. Some people doubted Nzinga because she was a woman. Some questioned whether a woman could carry a crown in a time of war. Some thought leadership belonged only to men. But danger does not ask whether a leader is male or female. When fire enters the village, people do not ask who brings the water. They ask whether the water will save them. Nzinga stepped forward. Not because the crown was easy, not because the palace was peaceful, not because everyone welcomed her. She stepped forward because her people needed a leader with courage, intelligence, and the strength to face a world that was changing violently. And so Nzinga became queen. But her crown did not rest on a calm head, it rested on a battlefield. The Portuguese were not the only threat. There were rival African groups. There were shifting alliances. There were betrayals. There were those who served foreign interests for their own gain. Nzinga understood that power was not only fought with spears, power was fought with information, with alliances, with timing, with patience, with the ability to bend without breaking. She gathered warriors, she strengthened her supporters. She opened her arms to people who had been displaced by war, captivity, and fear. To those who had lost homes, she offered purpose. To those who had lost families, she offered belonging. To those who had been treated as broken, she reminded them that broken calabashes can still carry sacred water when held with care. Under Nzinga, resistance became more than anger. It became organization. She knew the land, she knew the forests, she knew when to move, when to wait, and when to strike. The Portuguese had guns and forts, but Nzinga had knowledge of the terrain. She had the loyalty of people who understood what was at stake. She had the patience of a river, and a river, my children, may look gentle, but give it time, and it will carve through stone. When pressure on Ndongo became too great, Nzinga did not allow defeat to swallow her. Instead, she looked beyond one kingdom. She saw another possibility. Matamba, there she would build power again. There she would gather strength again. There she would turn displacement into strategy. Many leaders fall when they lose one place. Nzinga showed that a true leader carries the kingdom first in the spirit, before it is seen on the land. She moved, reorganized, and rose again. In Matamba, she did not sit waiting for pity. She built, she formed alliances, she trained fighters, she challenged the Portuguese again and again. She became a name that troubled their sleep. They wanted her quiet. She became louder. They wanted her isolated. She built networks. They wanted her forgotten. She became impossible to ignore, but leadership came with pain. Nzinga had to make difficult choices. Some choices were heavy, some alliances were dangerous, some decisions would be judged by those who did not carry her burden. And this is the truth about leadership. Those who watch from the shade often think the sun is not hot, but the one standing in the open field knows the fire on her skin. Nzinga was not a perfect woman carved from stone. She was a leader in a brutal time, surrounded by danger, betrayal, war, and survival. She carried grief, she carried anger, she carried memory, yet she continued. Year after year, she resisted Portuguese domination. She used diplomacy when diplomacy could protect her people. She used war when war became unavoidable. She used silence when silence gave her advantage. She used speech when speech could shake a room, and slowly her enemies understood that they were not dealing with an ordinary queen. They were dealing with a mind that could not be easily trapped, a spirit that could not be easily broken, a woman who had learned that survival itself could become a weapon. Still, the struggle was not ending. The Portuguese continued to press, battles continued, the land continued to bleed, and Nzinga, now older and seasoned by hardship, had to think beyond one battle, beyond one victory, beyond one generation. She had to ask herself, what does freedom mean if the children after us cannot inherit it? What does resistance mean if it dies with the warrior? What does a crown mean if the people have no future? The queen who had once turned insult into a throne now had to turn struggle into legacy. Years passed, battles came and went, alliances rose and fell, friends became uncertain, enemies became familiar, but Queen Nzinga remained, not because the road was easy. She remained because her spirit had learned how to stand in storms. By now her name had traveled far. To her people she was a shield. To her enemies, she was a problem. To history, she was becoming a legend. The Portuguese had expected time to weaken her. They thought age would soften her resistance. They thought hardship would bend her knees. They thought loneliness would quiet her voice. But some people are not reduced by time. They are refined by it. And as the elders say, the fire that melts wax can also harden clay. Nzinga had become clay hardened by fire. From Matamba, she continued to govern with intelligence and strategy. She did not rule only with weapons. She ruled with vision. She understood that a kingdom cannot survive forever by fighting alone. A people also need farms, they need families, they need trade, they need laws, they need memory, they need hope. So while her enemies watched her armies, Nzinga was also building a future. She strengthened Matamba. She welcomed those who had been scattered by conflict. She gave shelter to people who had lost their homes. She turned a wounded land into a place of rebuilding. Many came to her because they had nowhere else to go. Some came with pain in their eyes. Some came with anger in their chest. Some came with stories they could hardly speak. Nzinga understood them, for she too had lost much. She knew what it meant to be betrayed. She knew what it meant to carry grief privately and courage publicly. She knew that leadership often demands a person to smile before the people, then cry only where the walls cannot repeat it. But she also knew that sorrow must not become a prison, so she taught her people to rise. She reminded them that a scattered people could gather again. A broken path could be cleared again. A kingdom under pressure could breathe again. The queen grew older, but her mind remained sharp. She continued to negotiate when negotiation served her people. She continued to resist when resistance was necessary. She knew when to speak softly. She knew when to speak like thunder. And by the time peace was finally made in her later years, it was not the peace of a woman who had surrendered. It was the peace of a queen who had forced her enemies to recognize her power. That is why her story still matters, because Nzinga did not live in simple times. She lived in a world where power was cruel, trust was dangerous, and survival demanded wisdom beyond ordinary strength. Some may look at her story and see only war, but look again. You will see a woman who understood diplomacy. Look again, you will see a leader who protected the dignity of her people. Look again, you will see a queen who knew that if she bowed in spirit, a whole kingdom might bow after her. So she refused. She refused to be made small. She refused to let insult define her. She refused to let displacement become defeat. She refused to let age silence her. And when Queen Nzinga finally left this world in 1663, she did not leave as a forgotten ruler. She left as a flame carried by Angola, a flame carried by Africa, a flame carried by every storyteller who remembers that courage can wear a woman's face. Today, her name still walks through history. In Angola, she is remembered as one of the great symbols of resistance and leadership. Her life reminds us that power is not always in the loudest voice. Sometimes power is in the calm woman who enters a room and refuses to be humiliated. Sometimes power is in the leader who loses one kingdom but builds another. Sometimes power is in the heart that has every reason to give up but chooses to rise again. And this is the lesson the moon leaves with us tonight. Do not let the world decide the size of your spirit. Some people will deny you a seat. Some will question your strength. Some will mistake your patience for weakness. Some will expect you to bow because they do not know the royalty inside you. But remember Queen Nzinga. When they denied her a chair, she created her own seat of dignity. When they threatened her land, she became a shield. When history tested her, she did not disappear. She became impossible to forget. So when your own season of struggle comes, stand with wisdom, speak with courage, move with strategy, and never confuse humility with surrender, for the moon has spoken. And the lesson is ours to keep. A crown is not proved by gold. A crown is proved by the strength to rise when the world expects you to bow. Queen Nzinga, the woman who refused to bow.
Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, like, comment, and share so you won't miss our future videos. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.